Hello, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful panel on future-ready finance, inclusive solutions for emerging challenges. We have an all-women Power Pack panel today when we are discussing this very important topic. Quick introductions. I'm Dr. Vaibhav Joshi, co-founder and CEO of Tableton Tech, a career banker and a third-time founder. We have with us Bharti Joshi, who is the CEO of Grameen Foundation India and Grameen Foundation for Social Impact. We also have with us Preeti Gupta, who is the founder of Lakshmi. And we have with us Jayatri Dasgupta, who is the CMO and Program Director at Pay Nearby Technologies. With this, I hand over to Bharti to introduce yourself. Bharti, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Vaibhav. So as Vaibhav said, I'm the CEO of Grameen Foundation India and Grameen Foundation for Social Impact. I've been in the sector for over 26 years now, majorly into the livelihood promotion and institutional development space. At Grameen, we work on innovative solutions to bring people out of poverty. We work especially with young women, women farmers, and women entrepreneurs. So this is an area that I have worked in earlier. And so, yeah, that's it.
Preeti, may I request you to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. This is Preeti Rathi Gupta. My experience is almost 2 decades in financial services, and that's how my company Lakshmi came about, seeing the huge disparity between women and money. And this was across social stratas. If you look at the very affluent to absolutely below the, the absolutely marginalized women, there was a huge problem in inclusion of financial products. And that's what my company Lakshmi, which is a financial platform only for women, solves.
Jayatri, may I request you to introduce you, please?
Hi, I'm Jayatri, and I represent Pay Nearby here. We are country's one of the largest agent banking and digital network present across 20,000 PIN codes in the country. I lead the marketing function there. I'm also heading a business which is known as Digital Nari, which we have recently launched. Our objective is to build one of the country's largest women skilling and livelihood programs so that we can reduce the disparity that we see in genders across consumption in financial services.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. As you can see, we have a very power-packed panel with tremendous experience. We have somebody from the social sector, we have somebody from the financial inclusion space, and we have somebody from the fintech space, specifically catering to women as a sector. India is a very diverse country, with 1.45 billion populations. India has been at the forefront of technological advancements when it comes to, BFSI, primarily around, payments, finance, and banking space. Last month, in the month of September, India carried out, 15 billion UPI transactions. India has 63 million registered MSMEs. India have close to 12,000 registered NBFCs, which are non-banking financial corporations. India has close to 125 microfinance institutions, and India has 26 fintech unicorns. With such a diverse, financial institutions, catering to a variety of customers, to 1.45 billion customers, future-ready finance is a very, very interesting topic, because the way I look at it, India is divided into 2 parts. One is India and one is Bharat. And when we look at the solutions that have been, catered to both these segments, and then, how these solutions have now gone on to, cater to the global footprint. My first question to all of you, and we will go in the order of Bharti, Preeti, and Jayatri, please. What does come to your mind when we talk about future-ready finance? What do you think, what according to you is future-ready finance? Bharti, starting with you, please.
Yeah, I think, future-ready, where finance is concerned and where the disparities still persisting in India are concerned, I think some of the present also carries to the future. So that way, access, availability, and affordability, which are the key things we look at where financing, especially the poor, are concerned, they still hold valid. What is new is the required agility. And this agility is coming from the what we call a VUCA world. So we have a lot of changes that are happening, especially in the climate space. We are seeing the demographic dividend, or how it will shape up. So the aspirations are also changing. So that way, agility, not just responsiveness, but also anticipatory, so that the finance gets ready before people get there. before the needs arise. So that for me is future ready finance.
Excellent, Bharti. Thank you. Anticipation and agility, two very, very important points. Preeti, what do you think, according to you, is future ready finance?
I think Weber, you very rightly started this on a note that today as India, we are fully equipped and we are poised to probably have every individual in our country, to be financial transaction ready, whether it is the Aadhaar, whether it is the bank, the Jan Dhan, your digital identity, and then now even your financial identity. I think the challenge is that how do we make every person transaction ready? To me, future finance ready is how does every person in the country access these so there is one, the disparity in earning that already exists, right? And then there is disparity in accessing these, the financial tools that are available to enhance your ability to earn, ability to, save, ability to grow your savings or wealth, and access to credit. If that is not really bridged, then the disparity grows wider. So to me, it is that accessibility and affordability, like Bharti said, but added to that is also a lot of education and responsible finance, whereby it is customized to every person by their needs. You said Bharat and India. Today, if we talk about women, whether it's women in India, whether it's women in Bharat, they still have the same challenges when it comes to accessing financial tools. So it's really bridging that gap in a very, very responsible manner.
Amazing. Responsible manner, earn, save, grow, accessibility, women, some very, very interesting points over there, and we will discuss and debate a lot on them as we go ahead more into the discussion. Jayatri, over to you. What do you think, according to you, is future ready finance?
I think it's mostly covered by Bharti and Preeti. I will kind of echo what they have said and what you have said, that we have made a lot of progress in the country in terms of the innovation in the financial sector. I think we are among one of the biggest in the world in terms of the number of fintechs that come up every year, the amount of investment that goes into fintech. So there's a lot of innovation that already is happening in this segment. But however, the disparities still exist, right? While Jan Dhan and mobility added with UPI, what we call JAM today, has ensured that at least 90% of adult population in the country has a bank account. But if you look at the usage, whether it's gender or backward communities or marginalized communities, there is no homogeneity, right? There is still a lot of gap in that usage. So for me, future ready finance is a solution which caters to the needs of every citizen in the country, right? Whether it is in terms of product innovation or distribution capability, whether, to take what, FMCGs have done in terms of statutization, we need to get in some of those ideas into our construct and ensure that every citizen in the country has access to tools, financial tools that gets them a better life. And the second point, again, it has been discussed, that I want to stress on is what Bharti mentioned in terms of adaptability, right? Because as we scale, as innovations happen, we have to be nimble, because consumer behaviors, consumer expectations, the disparities, all of that need to be addressed. But as you scale and as you innovate, and as you become nimble, you also have to be sure-footed so that you give responsible solutions and people's in terms of fraud protection, in terms of how they're using it, they do not feel shortchanged, right? So how do you as you become more nimble-footed, as you scale, how do you also adapt so that you are more sure-footed in terms of the solutions that you're giving to the communities? So I think those are the two things I would like to stress on.
Thank you so much, Jayatri. I'm going to pick up 2 points two very important keywords that you said, nimble and JAM. So for those of you who don't know, JAM refers to Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile. Jan Dhan accounts are the accounts that were started in India, a decade or more back, in fact, 1.5+ decades back. And the idea was inclusivity of all, financial inclusivity of all, so that every Indian actually ends up with a zero balance bank account, and all banks were asked to go ahead to the nook and corner of the country and enroll people for Jan Dhan accounts. India's very own social security UID or Aadhaar, the unique number that Indian gets, was linked to these bank accounts, and then Jandan, Aadhaar, and mobile number that was seeded into the Aadhaar database for subsidy disbursement. So the trinity of Jandan, Aadhaar, mobile actually forms the base of financial inclusion in India. Fantastic. I think we have all very nicely laid the foundations, the conceptual foundations of what we are going to discuss over there. So Preeti, I would like to start with you. When we talk about finance, and especially future-ready finance, inclusivity is a very important aspect. You spoke while introducing your thoughts on this topic. You spoke about, the diversity and the variety of India and Bharat, specifically, how solutions need to be catered for women. Why do you think inclusivity is a critical component for future-ready finance? Let's speak from India perspective as well as from global perspective, please.
Great. So, Vaibhav, I think, I mean, it would still be strange that we have to talk about or explain why inclusivity is important, because I think that's a given now. I think if we want to live in a world where the disparities are bridged, so that we live in a happier, peaceful world, a healthier world, I think inclusivity of finance and actually money is the true power, right? If we do not give access to every person to be able to make use of it, I think we will live in a world which is a very, very unhealthy, unhappy world. Inclusivity is essentially, I mean, of course, we work when it comes to women, and we'll speak about India. More than half our population today is women, right? And if we leave them out, then as a country, I think we really suffer. And it goes without saying that women are actually the true, India as a country is unique in that sense that women are actually the savers here, right? They are the ones who actually earn, have small amounts of savings, but they do not have agency over that money. So to me, I think getting them included in that whole, the accessibility to financial tools to be able to work on their financial security. And when women manage money, only good things happen, right? Whether it's the family, whether it's the world. So to really give that power. But it also is across, it's not just women, but also I would say whether it's like you mentioned, India or Bharat, whether it is the marginalized community. And I think what we've done really well as a country is the digitization and the democratization of financial products. And I think that makes us actually front runners, and it gives us the ability to sort of make sure that as a country we make, we sort of leapfrog this whole wave of financial inclusion. I think when you talk about globally, even today, globally, 1/3 of the global population is unbanked, right? And I think there is a lot to be done, but every country, there's a unique sort of demographic fabric to every country in terms of also the railroads like we have in India, the accessibility to that, building of those, outreach, how digital penetration has been in that country, because there are a lot of countries where even today, the only mode is physical, reaching out, physically having people present. So I think, inclusivity is a given. I don't think we even have a choice as the new world to think about, there is no choice but to make sure that we have inclusive finance today.
Thank you, Preeti. I think, using technology and democratizing a lot of these products specifically aimed at, more focus on inclusivity would definitely help. And I agree with you, because I do remember, seeing those old movies where, when a son would go and earn his first salary, the first thing he would do is he would put that money in the hands of his mother and eventually in the hands of his wife, who would then manage the finances. So, and yes, it's a very interesting interpretation, because today when we look at, the way India is growing and the way, nuclear families are growing and the way, Bharat is also growing, management of finance traditionally has been something that has been done by, the men in the family. And today when we talk about democratization of finance and inclusivity from a perspective where the decisioning is carried out, by women, that's a very interesting aspect. Just 10 more seconds on that. MFIs in India have been doing tremendous job in that, because majority of the customers serviced by the MFIs, whether it is on the self-help group side or the joint liability group side, are women, are in the rural or semi-urban parts of the country, and they have had the largest amount of success when it comes to financial inclusion, and their lending ratio as well as collections ratio is far better than some of the top banks in the country as well. So I think some amazing point. Taking off from there, I would love to move to Bharti. Bharti, Preeti spoke about inclusivity. With you, I would like to understand, with your diverse experience on identification of challenges, what do you think are the top three challenges that are facing in the finance sector today?
So I think I represent only part of the sector, and Preeti and Jayati have the whole another part of it. So I can only share from my perspective the communities we work with. So one is definitely that with climate change and the VUCA world that I mentioned, the product innovations are not keeping pace with the requirements on the ground. And then the exclusion of women still remains. It is there. And as Preeti rightly said, whether it is urban or rural, some of the challenges persist. And we always stakeholders talk about the last mile, which is in fact her first mile. So how do we make her first mile journey that we have still not fully cracked, though we have SHG movement, we have now FPOs where we are talking about integration of women in the boards and also in the membership, but still there is still a lot of ground to cover. So product innovations specific to their requirements and a definite outreach, this remains a persistent challenge. The intra-household dynamics and the community level dynamics, which exclude women, the persistent gender norms, again, though it is present and it is the past, I also see it as a continuing challenge because it should not fall off our radar in the in the positivity we have with digitization. These basic things, social aspects should not fall off the radar. An emerging thing is the financial abuse part, how products are designed, how they are delivered, at what terms, what kind of a transparency as well as confidentiality is maintained, where women as users of these products are concerned vis-a-vis their spouses or more dominant members in the household. And one concern I'll just flag is, though it has been on my mind for the last I think few months, when we see digital also means things become more liquid and they become easily accessible also, and accessibility can also lead to easy transfer or disposability of assets. Do liquid assets or even debt or increased access to finance provide as much of a security to women, especially in times of climatic vulnerabilities or any other shocks, or physical assets still hold ground? So this is one aspect that we have to keep in mind with the do no harm thought, that whether digitization to some level and protecting the assets, because assets are the ones that will contribute to a person's continued resilience. So this is just one aspect I wanted to flag.
Thank you so much, Bharti. Some very interesting points. You spoke about inclusion, exclusion. You spoke about climate change. You spoke about, financial abuse, specifically the, liquidation point, and, points around if, some untoward incident was to happen. And I see so many, wealth tech startups mushrooming in that space, trying to help protect the assets and the carry forward in the event of an untoward this thing. One important challenge that, I would like to speak upon for 5-10 seconds maybe is, when you spoke about exclusion and we are talking about women as a segment who probably lack, a credit history, okay, who may not have a credit history, then, there needs to be solutions around a lot of alternate data. There needs to be solutions around a lot of, other data points from where, financial products can be rendered to them, especially when it comes to products like finance, lending, and so on. And sticking to that point, I would like to move to Preeti because, I would like to speak about the role of technology over here, Preeti. Now, taking a cue from what Bharti said, not a lot of women would probably be how do I put it? Credit worthy is probably the wrong word, but a lot of women would be new to credit. That's probably a more correct word, because they may not have access to financial products in the past, but they would like to, have access to financial products. What do you think is the role of new age tech like AI, blockchain, ML, etc., in fostering financial inclusion? Specifically, if we talk about, inclusion as a whole.
Vaibhav, I think you rightly pointed out the dichotomy in your earlier statement and now, right, where the MFIs are actually lending to women, right? Largely women. And this is just based on the fact, this is based on behavior, that women will borrow and will always repay back. So the NPAs are truly the lowest. And yet, when we look at women, they don't have a credit score, right? And this is, again, I would like to stress, this exists across social stratas, right? If you look at women in the middle income group, or the low income groups and the marginalized, unfortunately, women do not have a credit score because credit is typically granted to the male member of the family, or it's required for the male person to be a co-guarantor. We've done about 1,000 loans in Lakshmi to middle income women, and they're all new to credit. And we have used technology very effectively to understand their behavior and create a sort of a proxy credit score. And I think that now is ubiquitous in India. I think a lot of people are already doing it. I truly believe that, I think AI, blockchain, these will be trends that will help assess credit worthiness or give a proxy credit score to women to be able to access credit. I think in terms of future trends, and I say this very, very openly all the time, that in India, women will lead the next wave of financial inclusion, financial growth, because I think with the digitization, democratization, smartphones, interconnected services, and technology that now enables them to access this, I think, like Bharti said, that technology is easily available in India. I think it is very important for people who take this technology to women and to all users who are new to it, to make sure that they make it not just simple, but also very, very, they enable or power the user to make very informed decision. And I think to Bharti's point, I would like to say that, when it comes to physical assets versus liquid assets, I think it's important to also, there is a term in India called the Dabba Bank, where women actually put their money in dabbas, right? And to them, that is that security. If you can actually give them agency and say, and which is what we do in Lakshmi, is we tell them that here is where you keep your money. It is in a liquid asset. It could be debt, which you get access to in 2 minutes, but it is locked away. Only you can access it, right? Unlike the dabba where somebody can come and take away that money from you. So I think there is a lot that technology is enabling us to do in terms of actually creating financial security for women.
Thank you so much, Preeti. And I think, Dabba Bank is a very good example. That is how, and similar to Dabba Bank, on a lot of other data points, MFIs have catered to, curated solutions. I also feel somewhere that, in India, we have a concept known as Stri Dhan. When we talk about Stri Dhan, we are talking about gold that, the women hold. And there can be some very interesting technology-led use cases curated around that concept of gold, where a specific gold-backed lending product or a gold-backed banking product can be curated specifically for women. I think, Preeti, that's probably a pointer I will leave with you and see if you would want to incorporate something like that in Lakshmi. Moving on to you, Jayatri, we spoke about technology, we spoke about women at large, in the last couple of points with Bharti and Preeti. And looking at, what work you have been doing at Pay Nearby, you guys have been doing a lot of work in the social inclusion, in the financial inclusion aspect. And you guys have not limited it just to women, but you guys have been focusing more on the micro MSMEs, creating, retailers across the nook and corner of the country. You are servicing more than 20,000 pin codes, and you guys have actually given technology to the last mile, village. There is a villager across villages in the country, across talukas, district, who is holding a technology gadget, which actually has Pay Nearby offering services. Now, since you are so tech heavy and, tech first rather, digital first, what do you think are the barriers when it comes to technology that are preventing, financial penetration of financial products or preventing underserved populations from accessing financial services? Jayatri?
Yeah, so Vaibhav, in terms of the solution that you mentioned about us, right? We are a tech-first company, and with technology, we are enabling mass consumption. But if you look at it, really, we are an assisted tech company, okay? And there lies the actually the keyword, right? While tech is supposed to be an enabler and it's supposed to be a leveler, but the disparities in digital consumption is there. So India largely today, the Bharat that you mentioned, is tech shy, first time tech adoption. So not many are today still comfortable with doing the entire transaction on tech. So we need to, the way at Paynearby we operate is we are creating those influencers at the last mile who can then take those tech solutions to others, right? And that's I think where the challenges also come up. When we talk about our solution, the two things that we address is tech shyness and mobility. And I think these are the two biggest challenges that's there in the country in terms of accessibility of finance. Today's, especially the women gender, when we look at gender, mobility is still an issue, right? You are limited to a certain radius outside your home that you can travel independently. Those societal norms still remain. If you look at accessibility of a mobile device, ownership of a mobile device, usage of a mobile device, there is still a gap there. So if we want to be a total tech solution, we may still not be able to reach those segments of the population who do not have access to a mobile device fully today, or may not be able to travel that distance to go to a formal financial institute to consume. So from a consumer side, this becomes one of the biggest challenges that we have to solve for. And that's where companies like us come in. The second thing is also, again, we touched upon it, right, in terms of asset ownership. Women, especially, and some of the marginalized communities also do not have the collaterals, the assets to really go and ask for a financial solution. So how do we cater to that when there is lack of those assets or lack of those collaterals? What are the innovative ways that we can reach out to this population and ensure that we tailor-made solutions for them? Can we use local human intelligence clubbed with other data points that can then be used, their transactional patterns? There could be many other, the way the agricultural inputs are happening. We talked about climate. So can all of that be clubbed together to create an uniformity in terms of data usage, clubbed with local human intelligence that then helps us to tailor those solutions? This is from a consumer side, but if we look at the supplier side in terms of the challenges, see, one of the things that happens is, and I'm actually quoting someone who is again a leader in the inclusion space, who's mentioned that other than organizations like Lakshmi, and we are very happy that those organizations are coming in, but largely when humans develop a product, they develop it for the man. Okay, so how do, in terms of product innovations also, how do organizations create the sensitivity, the gender intent also, that when we are making solutions, we also make for specific needs of certain segments of population, whether it is gender or marginalized communities. Like Preeti was mentioning that flexibility in terms of the number of times that she can come in and save, flexibility in terms of liquidity, that she can take that money whenever she needs it. We also know that women today, while Sridhan and all of it is there, women today, when they save in this Dabba banks, they usually save it surreptitiously, right? Without the knowledge of the family, they're putting it there. So how do we ensure all of those are kept in mind when we are designing solutions? And those are the things I think that we need to actually solve for.
Great. So then we are talking about awareness, digital literacy, so on and so forth. And then from an inclusion perspective, Bharti, moving to you, when we talk about all these aspects, somewhere, regulatory landscape and innovations around regulatory landscape, come to mind. But while, the regulator in the country has been very strong and, has been also strict to some extent, of course, to make sure that the financial products are being catered in a particular manner. Do you want to speak a little bit on the financial abuse in this sector?
Yeah, I think thank you. This is a fairly new, I may say, articulation, but it has been there always. Means everything is prone to the abuse as it is to use. So as we in Grameen, we have been very active on this, especially recently, because we recognize financial abuse as a form of gender-based violence. And as Catherine Fitzpatrick, who is an innovator in her own right, she says that financial products and services are designed in a way as if all relationships are healthy, which is critical because when we ask a husband to co-sign, or when we use a common phone number for registering the accounts of the woman, we actually overlook a lot of things. We think that these relationships are healthy. So how do we cater to, how do we keep in mind that there is a possibility of financial abuse? There is a possibility of the loans taken in the name of women being used by somebody else in the household, creating bad credit history and difficult situations for women. These aspects are quickly gaining ground, and we as an organization globally have also started raising voice on it and developing a consortium of players, including ecosystem actors, to become conscious about financial abuse, which is a looming threat in the way women are able to access and use products, financial products and services.
Very interesting point, Bharti, because I recently was approached by somebody who's trying to build a product around this, especially around joint accounts. In India, we have a concept of joint account, where multiple people in the family can be a holder of an account, and they wanted to create a financial solution around that. So yes, when we talk about the Jam Trinity, where a mobile number is linked to a bank account. So yes, very, very interesting points. Thank you so much, Bharti. So I think what is important is, for this aspect, financial literacy is an important aspect. And Jayatri, I would like to come to you over here and understand, what are some of the successful initiatives that you feel exists to improve financial literacy among marginalized groups. And before I come to Jayatri, Bharti, I wanted to make one point. In addition to the financial abuse that you spoke about, is an abuse which is happening unknowingly. There is so much knowing abuse that is also happening, and we classify them as a category of frauds, and especially around super successful products like AEPS, where those biometric imprints are stolen from registrar's office and then used to actually withdraw. So, and we have a series known as Jamtara on Netflix. So for the viewers, if you have a look, and it really talks about the actual type of financial abuse knowingly that is done in the name of fraud. Jayatri, over to you. Let's speak on the educational initiatives, please.
Yeah, I mean, before I touch upon that, Vaibhav, since you mentioned AEPS and we are an operator in that space, we actively work in that space. The good thing is, I mean, there is an acknowledgement of that from all players, including players like us as well as regulators. So there's constant development that is happening in that space, including things like face authentication that is getting, introduced. So I think all of that together, I think will be more protective in terms of how this, breakthrough product in terms of accessibility is better utilized at the last mile. To specifically come to literacy, I think in terms of literacy, I think it has to be a combination of physical plus digital, because we already acknowledge that digital may be a problem for everyone because of whatever, one mobile phone in the entire family, ownership is with someone else. So if you design a completely end-to-end digital literacy, it may have limited success in that sense. But if you combine that with a physical model, then the adaptability is more. And like I like to mention that people like to take advice from someone like them who they have seen becoming successful in what they're doing, right? So if you can build influencers within communities where people can look up to, so whether it is marginalized communities or in terms of gender, if you can create those influencers who are people from amongst them, who can then be the voice of dissemination of all this, whether it is financial literacy, digital literacy, best practices, how to protect against fraud, how to be a better entrepreneur, how to sell, all of that is better heard, better reciprocated when it comes from someone like them. So a model which builds in community influencers along with digital tools that assist the community influencers to better service the communities, I think that is the model that at least at Pay Nearby we have seen becoming more successful. So
Digital Pradhan, the tagline of Pay Nearby, creating financial influencers across multiple geographies. Sticking to literacy, Preeti, moving on to you. I want to understand from you, what do you feel is the role of schools and communities, educational institutes, how these organizations can work together to enhance financial literacy? We understood from Jayatri, the way influencer creation has helped Pay Nearby. But from a education perspective, do you think there is a role for schools and communities to come together and work together to enhance financial literacy?
Absolutely, Vaibhav. I think I have a very strong view on the way the education system itself will change in the future. Thanks to data and again access to technology, and this will be across even marginalized section of the society, right? But of course, the at this point, I think just financial education firstly should begin at school levels, right? We are taught math, we are taught English, we are taught languages, we are taught a lot of science, all of that, right? But we are not taught financial or money management. We are taught compound interest, but we are not taught how to apply that compound interest concept, right? I think one of the biggest, the importance of having this at as early as by the time you're 6 or 7 years old is one, it ungenders the concept because boys and girls are equally taught this. So it's made to, everybody knows that, okay, this is not just a male domain or a female domain. And also you start imbibing it as a life skill very early on. Today, if we see across the country, even, and this is global actually, if you see even, institutes, engineering institutes, MBA institutes, higher qualified educational institutions, everybody talks about earning money. Nobody talks about how do you manage your money? How do you look at debt management? And these are important things to be included in all curriculums. So that's the first bit. Communities play a very important role, like Jayatri said. And particularly for women and the marginalized section of the society, I think community is the most powerful force, that peer-to-peer interaction. Like the influencer, like Jayatri said, we've seen it work absolutely. The core of Lakshmi is actually a community of women. And there's a lot of power in community coming and talking money. When we started the Lakshmi community, there was no money community for women. And we were skeptical whether it would work. And we were amazed at the success of how women started referring a lot of their friends that come here. Here is where you ask your money questions, right? So community is a very, very powerful tool when it comes to financial inclusion.
Some very well points, Preeti, and I do agree with you that, these are the subjects that need to be taught across at school, college levels, and, a community can play a very important part in that. Bharti, moving on to you, I would want to, pick your brains on addressing disparity. Do you think of any specific strategies that financial institutions need to adopt when we are talking about addressing disparity, in the financial inclusion space, especially if we are talking about, making a future-ready finance model?
I think some of the very good solutions have already been shared by Jayatri and Preeti. So, for example, I really like this concept which Jayatri said about the digital pradhan, creating local influences, because these are ways in which community becomes more aware. Then we also work in Grameen through local cadres. So how do you empower local cadres, help them mainstream into the financial ecosystem, like we are able to do with the partnership we have with Pay Nearby. Grameen Mitras, we developed from amongst the women in the community who had never gone out, new to credit, leave alone. They are even first generation entrepreneurs. And they have now got mainstreamed into the financial ecosystem as business correspondents. So they will be more aware to the needs of the women around them, including those who are challenged in any way, physically challenged, and everyone. So we see that change. I think that is one good strategy to reduce the disparities. Then financial abuse part, we have already spoken of, the do no harm kind of a lens that we need to have always, even when we are designing new products and services, customizing the products, their design as well as their pricing, so that they don't aggravate the differences between the haves and the have-nots, because otherwise the whole cream of benefits of all digitization may be taken away. So you have to paste things or customize things in the way that the poor and those first mile customers can actually benefit from, especially women. So, and as Preeti said in the beginning, I am also very optimistic that the entire wave will be led by women. So we need women in all places in all stakeholder decision-making positions in the cutting edge. So we are working, for example, with the business correspondent network managers so that there are more women BCs in the ecosystem, because definitely it's a matter of homophily. And we can speak about it at some other point, but we need women to address women's needs.
Interesting point, Bharti. We need women to address the issues surrounding women. Jayatri, moving on to you. We have discussed and emphasized a lot on disparity, democratization, accessibility, so on and so forth. Do you think that a PPP, public-private partnership model can play a role? And can you share some examples of successful PPP in promoting financial inclusion? Of course, one that I clearly see is Pay Nearby and Gramin coming together, and just taking a cue from what Bharti said. But yeah, Jayatri, over to you. Can you share some examples of successful PPP model in this?
Right. So yes, and thanks to Bharti and the entire Ramin team, I think we are seeing successes in this model in terms of taking this products and services to females across the country. So I think, Vaibhav, the intent has to come from everyone, right? Right from policymakers, regulators to, public participants, as well as private partnerships. And if you see the entire SHG model, the entire microfinance model, where, government woke up to the fact that we need to build more SHGs, more women SHGs, we need to enable financing solutions with them. And then FMFIs came and took those products to the last mile. They partnered with people like us, where they build the product and they ensure that the distribution of those products happen through us. So those kind of models already exist, right? In terms of, government showing intent, and then people then working towards making solutions because they know that they have the backing of the regulators, the backing of the government. They will get the SOPs when they're working towards a particular end, right? So the intent has to come and it has to flow through the funnel with everyone. Even with the gender work that we are doing, right? When the intent of the government is mentioned in, the creation of Lakpati Didis, automatically it gives a boost to people like us who work towards that end, right? And, we work with, like Bharti mentioned, we work with Gramin, we work with a lot of state livelihood missions, where we are seeing intent from those state governments to work towards female livelihood generation, right? We're working with them to generate local female-led business correspondence banking enablement, right? So those kind of partnerships are also there. And if you look at, RBI's approval of business correspondence as a model, and now the recognition that, we need to get more and more women also into this, so that 50% of the female population, which should not get ignored while we are looking at the larger population, right? So the intent we are seeing from regulators, policymakers, we are intent in terms of product development, we are seeing from public sector banks and organizations, and then we have partnerships with organizations like Gramin, with ministries at the state and the central level, with the NRLMs, NULMs, SRLMs, where they come and enable us so that we can be more empowered while we take the solution to the last mile. But again, one of the things that was said in an earlier forum that I attended, right, that when you look at enabling solutions, first is benefit-led, when government and policymakers come up and say that, these are the benefits that need to be taken. And that is the starting point, right? Then it is development-led, where Gramin and people like us will come in together and we will say that we need to take that development to the last mile. But sustainability comes when it is economy-led, right? So whether it is a business correspondence model or this woman who we are building as influencers, right? We need to make them economically viable. Unless we make them commercially viable, it is not going to be a long-term solution. So while we talk about public partnership, private partnership, all of us together, because the cost of building that woman, the cost of readiness, the time to build that readiness is substantial. And that is not the job of one person or one organization. There needs to be more public-private partnership to put that resources for us to make the woman ready. And we need to enable more and more of those partnerships so that we make this woman commercially viable, or we make this BC community commercially viable, so that, that last mile enablement can be possible.
Thank you, Jayatri. I could really see the passion of the program director of Pay Nearby in that response, especially when we spoke about the Lakpati Didis. So for all the audience, Lakpati is something similar to a millionaire. So 10 lakh is equal to 1 million in India. So we are talking about creating, millionaire women entrepreneurs. That's what Jayatri tried to say. And, making it commercially viable, commercially successful is the key. Thank you so much, Jayatri. Moving on to you, Bharti, and, we are going to come down to our last three questions. And in the interest of time, I'm going to request all the panelists to keep it, crisp and short as we try to conclude this session over the next, 7 to 10 minutes. Bharti, what do you think is the role of NGOs when it comes to, shaping inclusive financial inclusion? Do you think NGOs have a role to play? They have been doing some tremendous job, especially, the likes of Grameen Foundation. Where do you see it going?
So I think the role we spoke in different, while answering different questions, but financial literacy is one angle, one part, financial and digital literacy, where NGOs can play a role. Then raising issues like financial abuse. So for example, even researching and creating evidence on the nature of abuse. What kinds of, because you can tackle it only when you know it fully, and it varies context to context. So Grameen globally also has a program called SAFE, which is in which we are bringing together the consortia to understand how financial abuse is working in different locations. So that is one angle. Ecosystem enablement, wherever we can play a role, as Jayatri was saying, as Preeti is mentioning, what can we bring to the table and assist the sector so that we can go forward on the cause of inclusion. Then one big thing is innovation, innovative designs. We are already working in the space of designing products for BC Basket. We have also globally worked on bonds, like we have a unique gender climate bond in Uganda, which we are also thinking of bringing to India. So designing products that are relevant to the needs of the first mile is something where actors like Grameen can play a role.
Fantastic, Bharti. So digital literacy, designing products, some interesting points. And we have seen the role that Grameen has is playing in shaping the financial inclusion in the country, especially through its initiatives along with BCFI, with Pay Nearby, with Lakshmi and other partnerships. Preeti, moving on to you, let's talk about some, future trends. Can you predict some future trends from an inclusive finance perspective? Let's talk about, how the next decade will shape up.
Absolutely, Vaibhav. I think so. Firstly, from where we see it today, where we are, placed as a country, and I'm speaking only about India today, is the fact that I think financial inclusion will actually be as ubiquitous as, data is in our country. I'd even say as ubiquitous as oxygen, right, for people to breathe in. Yes, I know Bharti talks about climate change, but even then I feel that's where we will be in the next 1 decade. And I think all of this will be enabled by your mobile digital banking, the use of artificial intelligence, to sort of to help, service the underserved communities by whether it is creditworthiness or alternative data sources, like you said, personalized financial guidance across products, blockchain. I think all of these will be huge enablers. And when I say personalized, see, right now what we see is, for example, in the marginalized section, it is essentially access to credit, right? But access to insurance, access to basic, subsidies that the government has given, awareness of that, or even small savings instruments, that isn't as accessible, right? So when I say financial inclusion, I actually mean access to all of these products, which I see over the next 1 decade. Across, irrespective of what social strata, you will have access to all of that. While all of this is a given, I think because we are already working towards it, I think the 2-3 places where I see a lot of changes happening. One of them, I think, is like Jayatri mentioned, inclusive regulation. I think for regulation to really become aware, and I'll give you an example. Today, if somebody wants to invest in a gold mutual fund, which by the way is a great innovative product for a woman to start putting money when it comes to gold, to begin with 100 rupees also, she needs to get an OTP on her phone. Now, if we, and we are actually in the process of doing this along with Grameen and some initial conversations with Pay Nearby as well. Typically, if she doesn't have access to a phone, how does she get that OTP? So also creating inclusive regulations, I think is very, very important in terms of really, getting that access to all of this. And that will happen. I think now there is sort of consciousness of making sure that that is an outreach across the board. I think collaboration, which is what I mean, there is, you can see on this panel, right? The power of collaboration. It's not just public and private partnerships, but for example, at Lakshmi, we are the ones who can create innovative, we are creating innovative products for women, right? We can innovate in terms of a B2C as well as a B2B and assisted journey. Now, the power of collaboration between everybody here on this panel itself tells you where we can take financial inclusion, right? So I feel that is something that is going to happen even more effectively, because every whether it's a bank, whether it's a fintech like us, whether it's an NGO like Grameen, or whether it's a digital assisted journey like Pay Nearby, we have our strengths. And I think really building on each other's strengths is going to be the future, instead of trying to be everything ourselves. And the most important piece that I see happening is really patient capital coming in here, because we truly believe that financial inclusion, of course, is huge impact, but it is also a very, very profitable business model. And I think what we need and what will come in is patient capital, which makes it doable. The understanding of you're building a long-term, sustainable, profitable business model. And that, I think, is truly the future of inclusive finance for us.
I keep on saying the same thing. Predictable, sustainable financial modeling is the way for the future. So thank you, Preeti. Very well summed up over there. Jayatri, moving on to you, the last question. And, before I come to, discussing what are the success metrics with all three panelists, Jayatri, the last question to you is, how do you think financial institutions can actually remain agile when we are talking about, responding to rapid changing economic conditions? What do they need to adopt to change?
Yeah, so I think, again, this question in some context, I think Bharti has touched upon it previously. More as an organizational DNA, you have to be more anticipating of what is going to come in terms of consumer behavior, consumer expectations. You need to, across this organizational structure, whether it is your product, your tech, your front-facing teams, you need to build that DNA that they go out to the market, they understand consumer behavior, and they're able to better predict what is going to happen in the future, right? I think once that is there, not only in your sales team or your product team, across the organization, that DNA is kind of adapted. I think that will help in creating solutions that are more future ready.
Amazing. So create a culture in the organization such that it gets imbibed into the DNA of the organization. So very nice, very, very innovative response. Thank you so much, Jayatri. And, thank you to the wonderful panelists for a very interesting discussion. We spoke across the spectrum. We spoke on a lot of topics, right from defining future-ready finance to emerging challenges, to, impact of climate change, technology innovation, bridging the access, regulatory landscape, financial literacy, economic disparities, collaboration across sectors, sustainable finance, consumer protection, global perspective, future trends, and so on. My last question to all the panelists, and again, going in the same order as we introduced the panelist, Bharti, followed by Preeti, followed by Jayatri. I'm going to request you to keep this to a crisp, pointed response. What do you think, are the parameters to measure success to create a digital future-ready finance or a future-ready finance? Bharti, starting with you, what do you think are the parameters for measuring success?
So I think at our level, there can be a lot of measurements that we can do, but we have some, you can say, milestones that we can see around. So I can see on a daily basis, my cook who was a woman entrepreneur, food entrepreneur, but she could not access credit, and today she's cooking in different households. I have another support at my home who, due to medical emergency, is now cleaning the houses in our locality because she did not have any access to finance to tide over a medical emergency. Then we have a guard in our society who is not a guard by choice, but because he doesn't have finance to learn even a driving as a skill, he's not able to skill up and upgrade. So for me, these are the milestones I see every day that I feel that if we see them moving, then we are sure that digital financial inclusion has benefited people.
Amazing. Preeti.
I have a very simple answer, Vaibhav. I think if we are able to power, and I don't say empower, I really mean, truly mean power 100 million women in India to access all financial tools that are available. I think that's a milestone, because 100 million women means 400 or 500 million Indians, right? Because every woman means her children, her family. So to us, I think that sort of is sort of the pivot moment of saying, okay, we've reached this place where we've, powered more than half our population towards financial inclusion.
Amazing. Jayatri.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? When the disparities are reduced, right? When the gender gap that we see in the usage of accounts that get reduced, when insurance reaches to those people who do not have an insurance today, when savings, less than 10% of the population access formal institutions, when that number increases, that is when we will say that we are future ready, right? When accessibility becomes a reality. And like Preeti was mentioning, I think at Pay also we believe that in the next 5 years, if we can build 2 crore women influencers, and each woman influencer touching at least 25 more women, we are already looking at a number where we can take the services to the last mile, right? So that is the kind of aspiration we want to have within Pay. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I can already see Bharti making down some notes and setting some targets for the program. So an amazing discussion there, ladies, exciting discussion. I think there are a lot of key takeaways that we spoke about, product creation. We are talking about democratization of product. We are talking about accessibility of product. We are talking about digital literacy to scale. We are talking about creating financial influencers. We are talking about, the role of schools and communities, especially, we also spoke about, the financial abuse and how the risks can be minimized. And then finally, we are talking about the inclusion of marginalized groups to remove the disparities, and not necessarily while women form a great marginalized group when it comes to financial products. There are also, other target groups such as micro MSMEs and so on. And then we spoke about, the emergence of Bharat within India, and, how these are two different markets and products need to be curated for that. Overall, an exciting discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Bharti, Preeti, and Jayatri. And thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.